Saudi Arabia is a nation located in Western Asia, formerly known as the State of Saudi Arabia. It is the second largest Arab nation in Western Asia and the Middle East and encompasses most of the Arabian Peninsula with a land area of about 2,150,000 square kilometers. Despite being a popular country, Saudi Arabia has long been faced with the problem of desertification. There are forests, grasslands, mountain regions, and deserts in Saudi Arabia, which have diverse topography. Regional temperature variations exist, and in the summer, the desert can hit over 110 degrees Fahrenheit, while in the north and center of the nation, it can get below freezing in the winter. The typical annual rainfall in Saudi Arabia is only 4 inches, making it one of the world's water-scarce countries. Even though 97% of its population has access to drinkable water, 500 cubic meters per person per year is the absolute water shortage threshold. Only 89.5 cubic meters per person are produced annually in Saudi Arabia. Severe overconsumption and a lack of trustworthy renewable water sources have elevated this problem to a top priority. The most valuable natural substance in Saudi Arabia, in the opinion of many, is oil. However, water is becoming more valuable due to the water problem in Saudi Arabia. The oceans and groundwater, which are quickly depleting, are the two main water sources. In addition, 98% of all naturally occurring fresh water is contained in the earth and in Saudi Arabia. Each makes up 50% of the water utilized. But how has Saudi Arabia coped with this problem and turned many of its desert areas into green farmland? Over the past 3 decades, agriculture in Saudi Arabia has advanced astonishingly. Even in a nation with one of the lowest rainfall rates in the world, large sections of the desert have been converted into agricultural fields. And today, Saudi Arabia sends various goods to markets worldwide, including wheat, dates, dairy products, eggs, fish, poultry, fruits, vegetables, and flowers. Agriculture policy is mainly the responsibility of the Ministry of Agriculture, and other government organizations include the Grain Silos and Flour Mills Organization, which buys and stores wheat, builds flour mills, and creates livestock feed. The Saudi Arabian Agricultural Bank distributes subsidies and offers interest-free loans. Additionally, the government finances research projects and provides land distribution and reclamation programs. The private sector has significantly aided the growth of agriculture in the kingdom. The reason for the significant growth of agriculture in Saudi Arabia can be attributed to government initiatives that were implemented to support and incentivize farmers. These initiatives included long-term interest-free loans, technical assistance, support services, financial incentives like free fertilizer and seeds, inexpensive water, fuel, and electricity, and duty-free equipment and raw materials imports. These measures helped to increase production and made it more profitable for farmers to expand their operations. Before the 1970s, the agriculture in the Arabian Peninsula was mainly limited to date farming and small-scale vegetable production in dispersed oasis communities. These communities were able to produce enough food from small plots to meet their needs, and any surplus was sold to traveling caravans. However, in the 1970s, the Saudi Arabian government started a comprehensive program to support agricultural research and training institutions, as well as to build rural roads, irrigation networks, storage facilities, and export facilities. This program, along with the initiatives mentioned earlier, led to a significant increase in agricultural growth. The production of staple foods, meat, milk, and eggs increased dramatically, and Saudi Arabia became entirely self-sufficient in these commodities. The government's efforts also led to the conversion of large swaths of desert into productive farmland. In 1976, there were fewer than 400,000 acres of land under agriculture. By the 21st century, there were millions of acres. What's astonishing is that although the majority of Saudi Arabia's terrain is covered by desert, a surprisingly large number of indigenous plant species are able to withstand the harsh climate. Now, under the umbrella of the Saudi Green Initiative, efforts are underway to preserve and even increase the amount of vegetation across the kingdom. From its desert vistas in the north to the southern region of Acer, the kingdom is home to an abundance of vegetation, including more than 2,000 wild plant species belonging to 142 families, according to the Saudi National Center for Wildlife. However, about 600 of these species are classified as endangered and 21 are already thought to be extinct. The SGI recently announced the largest reforestation project the country has ever seen, with a target of planting 450 million trees in the coming years. Currently, about 10 million trees have already been planted across all of the kingdom's 13 regions. Forests aren't the first ecosystem that comes to mind when one thinks of Saudi Arabia. Nevertheless, the kingdom is home to about 2.7 million hectares of woodland, most mostly in the southwest inaccessible mountains of Apar and Asag. On the surface, planting 450 million trees may appear ambitious, let alone the planned greening of the desert, particularly in light of the kingdom's rapid urbanization. But in reality, the Saudi government has established specific SGI objectives to integrate green areas harmoniously into urban growth, including parkland and afforestation within the bounds of the kingdom's desert cities. To counter the potential harm of urban sprawl, these cities' unmanaged surfaces will be greened, which will not only help to slow down global warming, but also reduce carbon dioxide emissions, enhance air quality, open up possibilities for more active lifestyles, and sustainably beautify cities. Meanwhile, in more rural areas, the greening initiatives must contend with encroaching desertification, scarce water supplies, and record high temperatures, all of which are considered to be the result of human-caused climate change. The SGI roadmap aims to safeguard the kingdom's distinctive biodiversity, stop and reverse desertification and soil degradation, and keep the nation's limited water resources where rainfall is insufficient and groundwater is depleted. Currently, 15 places in Saudi Arabia are protected due to their biodiversity, 12 on land and 3 are in the sea, according to the National Center for Wildlife. This number would be raised to 75 with 62 on land and 13 in coastal and aquatic regions. Approximately 6% of the kingdom's total surface area is covered by the King Salman World Nature Reserve in northern Saudi Arabia. About 300 different animal species live there along with rare archaeological heritage sites, some of which date back as far as 8000 BC. It also contains mountainous terrain, vast plains, and high plateaus. With the assistance of volunteers and in collaboration with modern reserve administration, recently planted 100,000 seedlings as part of an initiative by the Reserves Authority and partners to support SGI's objectives. According to a KSRNR spokesperson, Saudi Arabia is dedicated to increasing the vegetation cover, as we have already accomplished, by planting 600,000 plants and having many seed sowing campaigns to increase the vegetation in the reserve. Perennial trees and shrubs restore the ecosystems damaged by the desert. These plants are endemic to the habitats of the desert and have evolved to withstand harsh conditions such as drought and high temperatures, and they don't need a lot of water for irrigation. The primary nursery installation is just one of many projects that make up the reserve's strategic goal to create a seeding program. Water, however, continues to be a significant obstacle to conservation efforts and green initiatives in the kingdom. The people of the Arabian Peninsula developed freshwater wells over the years to sustain life and survive storms. After the economic boom that the kingdom experienced in the 1970s, Saudis gradually adopted modern farming techniques and began progressively using groundwater resources. Saudi Arabia built seawater desalination plants in its eastern and western coastal regions to support inland cities. The country lacks rivers and natural lakes and receives very little annual rainfall to replenish sources. However, there is an increasing need for fresh water, and natural aquifers quickly run dry. The Saudi government is focusing on protecting and utilizing its water resources more effectively to meet the demands of its developing economy while maintaining green areas. The King Abdullah University of Science and Technology Center for Desert Agriculture's scientific advisor for Green Arabia, Moria Nava, explained that the SGI strategic team plans to use treated wastewater to irrigate recently planted vegetation. Additionally, they aim to reduce rainfall loss to the sea by introducing and enhancing water harvesting techniques in the kingdom and remediating soil for water retention when necessary. According to Nava, plants growing in urban regions require more water and canopy coverage than those growing in mountainous, wadi, and desert climates. She noted that this vegetation needs more water than arid trees that are drought resistant and have fewer leaves. Changes in agriculture have transformed the traditional diet of Saudi Arabia, with a variety of local foods now available that were once unthinkable just a few generations ago. While dates remain a significant supplementary meal, they are no longer the essential staple they once were. Around 500,000 tons of the 450 various types of dates produced each year are used for international humanitarian assistance, with tens of thousands of tons donated annually to help alleviate famine and food shortages, primarily through the World Food Program of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. One factory in Al-Khali produces dates solely for foreign assistance. Saudi Arabia's numerous initiatives, including the supply of soft loans with low interest rates, technical and support services, low-cost water, fuel, and electricity, as well as duty-free equipment and raw materials imports, have played a significant role in the agricultural sector's development in recent years. Tax exemptions for up to 10 years are provided to foreign joint venture partners of Saudi individuals or businesses. Additional incentives have been provided by the investment rule since April 2000. The Ministry of Agriculture is the primary body responsible for carrying out agricultural policy, providing assistance to farmers with research and extension work. The Saudi Arabian Agricultural Bank distributes assistance and extends interest-free loans to support the expansion of agriculture across the country. The government of Saudi Arabia has made a significant financial commitment towards improving the road network that connects production areas to consumer marketplaces. This is aimed at promoting private investment in the agricultural sector. In addition to this, the Land Distribution and Reclamation Program, which was launched in 1968, aims to distribute fallow land for free, typically in small plots. This is done to expand the area under cultivation and promote crop and livestock production. The program requires beneficiaries to cultivate at least 25% of the total land area within 2 to 5 years. Once the farmer complies, they are given complete ownership of the land. The government also provides support to new farmers executing capital-intensive projects under the development plans. Additionally, the government funds and supports research initiatives aimed at creating new food crops, increasing harvest, and developing plant strains with higher pest resistance to increase farm productivity. These research programs are carried out in collaboration between local farmers and scientists at agricultural research centers located at Saudi Arabian universities and colleges. It is noteworthy that Saudi Arabia imports 90% of its fresh food, and the country's success in agriculture is a remarkable accomplishment considering this fact. The use of clay and water has transformed the harsh and desolate Arabian desert into a lush orchard. For instance, parts of Egypt's Nile Delta thrived in the 1980s despite being close to the desert. The delta had long been a dependable location to farm because of its reputation for fertility. Due to its productivity, the ancient Egyptians shifted their focus from subsistence cultivation to creating a strong civilization that gave rise to cultural achievements that are still celebrated thousands of years later. However, despite sustaining communities in the area for millennia, that fecundity vanished in just a few short years. When researchers looked into what had happened to the fertility of the land, they discovered that the Nile, which would spread onto the plains of the Egyptian delta in late summer each year before subsiding again, was no longer providing the same level of nutrients it once did. In Saudi Arabia, the government has invested heavily in improving infrastructure, such as roads, to connect producers with consumers and promote private investment in agriculture. They have also implemented a land distribution and reclamation program, which provides fallow land to farmers for free, with the expectation that they will cultivate at least 25% of the land within 2 to 5 years. The government also supports new farmers with capital-intensive projects and funds research initiatives to increase crop productivity and resistance to pests. Despite importing 90% of its fresh food, Saudi Arabia has transformed the desert into a productive agricultural region. Thanks to these initiatives,